What's up, metal and heavy music fans? Today we have a review of Napalm Death and their new album Resentment Is Always Seismic, a Final Throw of Throes via Century Media Records. Look, if you don't know who Napalm Death is at this point, you can just get out your phone and look it up. Even Jim Carrey knows who they are.
There's this one band out that's called Napalm Death.
In any case, aside from already helping to set the blueprint for grindcore as we know it, this UK band continues to drop some of the best albums of their career, culminating in the incredible Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism, which made so many year-end lists back in 2020. This mini-album, as the band calls it, is a continuation of those same ideas. A tall order, but these songs do not disappoint. We open with Narcissus with its great distorted bass intro to set the stage for the coming destruction, followed by rising cymbals and a killer drum fill transition into the opening brawl. Barney sounds pissed as ever, like there are 20-year-olds who can't muster this same level of vitriol. And then just when you think the hatred is at its peak, we get hit by another battering drum roll going into a downward spiral of pure grinding D-beat fury that rivals the band's earliest material. At this point, Barney adds an extra layer of haunting, mantra-like cleans on top of the screams, the entire track then culminating in a chaotic deluge of drums and distortion. Then we have Resentment Always Simmers. Much like on the previous album, these more traditional grind tracks are broken up by sludgier, more experimental ones, with this one reminiscent of the harrowing A Belly Full of Salt and Spleen, with its sickening, lurching groove and echoing percussion. Eerie, reverb-laden guitar sustains and unsettling vibrato vocals combine to add a nightmarish atmosphere to the proceedings, once more drawing in Barney's more eclectic influences in the vein of Killing Joke and Helmet. It's another terrifying yet highly impressive composition that proves that Napalm Death are a legacy act unwilling to bend the knee to the status quo while their peers settle into semi-retirement. Back to the grind now with By Proxy, with the band wasting zero time rapidly pounding the toms into one of the most violent opening screams of their entire career. It boggles my mind that a man in his 50s still delivers noises that rival much younger groups like Full of Hell in their sheer ferocity. Dude is almost 20 years older than me, and I'd still be intimidated to get on his bad side.
I'm gonna fuck you up.
This song may only be just shy of 2.5 minutes, a pretty typical grind, but between his primal delivery and Shane's insane bass tone, it's far more memorable than most tracks you'll hear in the genre of the past 10 years. And the speed of those drums? In a word, demolishing. Next up is People Pie, and I tend to skip over covers when it comes to these types of releases, but trust me, do that here and you'll be missing out on one of the best tracks. Seriously, this is how it's done. This is another industrialized head bobber that calls back to their 90s era focus on groove, once more Shane's rumbling low end absolutely bulldozing everything in its wake alongside machine-like noise and driving rhythms. The effects on the vocals are already scary enough in their own right, calling back to some of my favorite Skinny Puppy albums, but then they throw in some seemingly mismatched female soul backup vocals for a combination that works in the strangest possible way. I'm not overly familiar with the works of Slab, but you'd better believe that Napalm Death have me interested. An absolutely killer song that is a banger on its own, but also opens the door for new music discovery? Now that's the mark of a truly great cover. By the way, speaking of weird eclectic metal music, Zeal and Ardor are also dropping their follow-up to the critically lauded Stranger Fruit this week. If you love these weird fusions of seemingly disparate sounds, you should definitely give the new self-titled album a listen. Time to grind it up once more with Man Bites Dogged with one of those classic power chord buildups. More D-beat, more pulverizing bass, more punk and hardcore influenced riffage. This one is also a bit deceptive in that it starts off pretty straightforward, but in this genre, over 4 minutes is an eternity, and once more Napalm Death aren't content to just play the same guitar part over and over again. This thing goes through a number of disorienting pace changes, spiraling into a fiery blast beat around the midpoint, and then right back into the headbanging stuff. Then those gang vocal parts kick in, and I'm a splintered pile of meat and bone on the floor of the pit. And just when you think it's over, we get yet another atmospheric flourish at the end that serves as almost a final warning to anyone thinking about joining in on the next mosh as they shine the spotlight on our broken, mangled bodies. And then we rage with Slaver through a repeat performance. More great syncopated screams on this one to terrify anyone who buttons their shirt all the way up to the collar, as well as more of those evil sounding "aww." Somebody go back in time and play this for Tipper Gore in the courtroom. Her head might just explode.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
It ain't really metal unless it's pissing someone off, and while most people have adapted to this music just being part of the norm these days, I think these guys may still have what it takes to put a few cummerbunds in a twist. And that drum and bass solo around the 2 minute and 42 second mark.
Perfection.
After that, we have Don't Need It, and I love me some old school punk, and unsurprisingly, so do Napalm Death. I enjoy Bad Brains enough already, but this take on their song takes it to an entirely different level. The velocity alone of this track is enough to spin your head right off your shoulders, and once more, Barney shapeshifts into a true gutter dweller with a raspy bark that's surely backed by an equally off-putting case of halitosis. Blink and you'll miss it, but this one hits like a nuclear blast. And then we close with Resentment Is Always Seismic, Dark Sky Burial Dirge. Pretty much coming full circle here, we get basically another rendition of Resentment, but this one is arguably even more craterous. After another ominous intro, Shane kicks into a seriously infectious bass hook that I guarantee will be stuck in your head for days. This version plays out like Godflesh performing their own vile remix, complete with more industrial drumming and a subtle backdrop of synth. A lot of bands try to get heavy by speeding things up, but sometimes it's slowing things down and really breaking a song down to its most basic components is what makes for a maximum body count. So some may write this release off as a mere EP, but there's a reason why the band isn't promoting it that way. This is basically like they're broken. Skip this and you're missing out on perhaps Napalm Death's most unholy evolution to date. Watch them shed their skin and become the true reptiles that they've always been. And hey, let's face it, 30 minutes in the grindcore world is an album. Turning to my 3 scales, I give it a 10 for enjoyability. Every single track could be counted among their best, and each in a different way, and each time it ended, I just hit the play button again.
Just hook it to my veins!
I give it a 10 for musicianship, from the drums to the bass to the guitars to the vocals to the complex songwriting and experimentation, and all of it honed down to a strangely digestible and addictive experience.
That's art.
And I give it a 9 for innovation. As I said before, the fact that these guys are still willing to step outside the box and challenge their listeners, while most bands at this stage just rinse and repeat, knowing that the fans will open their pockets regardless, that's the mark of a truly great band. What a perfect follow-up to already one of the best albums of their career. So a 9.7 overall and an A for Resentment Is Always Seismic, a Final Throw of Throes. Y'all be sure to check out my Napalm Death tier list for my thoughts on their entire discography, and let me know your favorite Napalm Death song in the comments. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.